Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Tonight we're going to be looking at Daredevil number 168 through 172. Is that right? Yeah. And these are from 1981. This is a continuation of our look at Frank Miller's run on Daredevil. I think we might even go past Frank Miller's run. I have some non-Frank Miller Daredevil issues, but we'll get to that point when we get to that point. So, this is when Frank Miller takes over as writer, and some of the best comics from my childhood. These blew me away when they came out. I was already into Daredevil when he was just drawing it, and I remember buying this 168 off the racks, first appearance of Elektra, and just being like, this is a whole new ball game we're into. So here we go, guys. Very classic cover. Some amazing stuff. So, Frank Miller, artist and writer, well, penciler, and Klaus Chancer is now listed as inker and embellisher. And you can kind of tell, unfortunately, that Frank Miller, I think, is doing looser layouts, letting Klaus Chancer actually draw more. And it's still really nice, but I don't like the art as much as the past few issues. So, we start off, once again, Daredevil's hassling that guy Turk. This is really when Turk becomes almost a regular in the comic. We've seen Turk before. He's a low-level, kind of incompetent thug gangster. And but pretty much after this issue, he's going to become a recurring comic relief character who sometimes is almost an ally to Daredevil, but against his will. So here we see Turk. He's pretending to be a blind man, and Daredevil shows up. Of course, Turk is not too happy because Daredevil's always fucking with him. Turk sticks a scary dog on him, and Daredevil just kicks the dog away, beats up Turk a little. And then I guess there was a backup guy. This guy pretending to be a wino. His bottle is actually full of nitroglycerin. He throws it, and Daredevil quickly grabs Turk and gets out of the blast's radius. The guy runs away. Figures he's shaking Daredevil because he's not quite sure, if he survived. Of course, Daredevil did survive. He's a little beat up. That's such a good panel there. That's just beautiful to me. Really nice stuff. And we realize someone's watching this whole scene as Daredevil beats this guy up. And it's our first appearance of Elektra. She's thinking to herself, Daredevil, what is he doing here? He could ruin everything. So she throws one of her sais in the back of Daredevil's head and knocks him out with a kick. So I guess she was basically supposed to get this guy. There's a bounty on this dude. And as Daredevil passes out for reals, he's like, that voice, Elektra? And he passes, and he falls unconscious. And now he has a flashback dream. And we see young Matt Murdock before he became Daredevil when he was a law student at Columbia with his pal Foggy Nelson. And he has his first meeting with Elektra Nachos. She's a diplomat's daughter. And there's this big goon who is around her all the time, a bodyguard. Matt just... They have a little meet-cute type thing. The bodyguard pushes them away. Matt is instantly transfixed by her. So a few days later, he has Foggy do a little distraction to get rid of the bodyguard. And he gives her a flower. And he basically asks her out on a date. She basically kind of says, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but you're blind. And I can't really date a guy like you. And she walks away. And Daredevil says, I'm going to seize the moment. Fuck this. I've been hiding my powers all this time since I was a teenager. And so he leaps in front of her and proves that he's not really just a blind guy. He tells her his whole story about how he was hit by that truck and the radioactive materials. And he has powers that make him even more capable than your average man. So she agrees to the date. She seems pretty charmed by him. So they fall in love. And then one day, Matt and Foggy are walking through campus, and I guess some terrorists have captured her father, because he's an ambassador, and her. So for the first time, Daredevil puts on a little scarf around his face so nobody will recognize him. First time he swings into action as a do-gooder. And he goes into this building. He knocks out all the terrorists. Now, Elektra herself at this point had already studied martial arts. So he knows that he's going to need her help. So he kind of basically says this little thing. He says, hit him low, olive oil, as a signal. She kicks one of the guys. He knocks out the other guy. And one of the guys falls out the window. They don't know what's going on, the cops below. They're just like, they're throwing the hostages out the window. Open fire. And right then, unfortunately, Elektra's dead. Even though he's tied up, he kind of gets to his feet. Daredevil's Matt Murdock says, stay down. It's too late. Fup, fup, fup. And he falls down dead. Elektra is just, it hits her hard, as you can imagine. We see at the funeral later, Matt is trying to console her. And the caption says, she never cries the whole time. And a few days later, she heads back to Europe. She says her goodbyes to Matt. She's like, basically she tells him, I've lost faith in the world. I used to love the world, she says. You're part of that world and you love it. You let it hurt you and you love it all the more. I'm not that strong. And he says, I love you, baby. No, he doesn't say that. He says, I love you, Elektra. But she leaves and he's devastated. Now he wakes up in that alley from his unconscious state. And from his thought balloons, we realize, I guess ever since then, Elektra has become a ruthless bounty hunter. And even though he definitely still loves her in a certain way, he knows he has to bring her to justice. So it's a pretty conflicted situation. There's still really nice panels in here. Like, look at that. That's like really nice stuff. But some of these faces are a little off. And I'm sorry, I'm blaming Klaus Janson. I probably shouldn't. I don't really have proof. That's a really nice setting panel too, with the lightning. So here's the guy, this German guy. I'll get his name in a second. This is the, I'm sorry, you guys. Earlier, that little thug, that wasn't who Elektra has a bounty on. It's this guy. He just had information about him. His name's Wallenquist. And he's just a big-time baddie. And we see Elektra with that thug. And she has a side to his throat, and she says, call him up. Don't tell him, But he tips off Wallenquist. And so he knows something's up. So Daredevil stakes out this cigar shop because apparently Wallenquist likes a certain kind of rare cigar. The flunky who went out to get cigars, he was muttering to himself about fucking Wallenquist treats me like an errand boy, and Daredevil overheard. So he knows this guy works for Wallenquist. He gets the information out of him by dropping him off this building and catching him at the last minute. He says, I can keep this up all night. Because the guy says, I know you don't kill people. So now we see this dock where Elektra's going to, supposedly intercept this plane. But Wallenquist is onto her. So when she shows up, he's got all of his goons ready. And we see this guy Grotto, who we're going to be seeing more of Grotto too. That's the thing about Daredevil. He kind of turned, Frank Miller kind of turned Daredevil into like a really good crime comic where we got all these low-level gangsters interacting and they appear every issue. It's almost like he was laying the groundwork for something like Sin City already. But he started that way. When he was a fanzine artist, he would, most kids were drawing superhero comics. He was drawing like film noir type hard-boiled crime fiction. So he loves that shit, even when he was a teenager, sneaking it into Daredevil. And it changed Daredevil. Daredevil was the kind of a Spider-Man knockoff. He'd always be cracking wise. He was a happy-go-lucky swashbuckler. And now ever since Frank Miller, we think of Daredevil as almost kind of like Batman-ish. Once again, just beautiful fight choreography. These long horizontal panels. Elektra's taking out all these guys pretty effortlessly. But then one of them, sorry guys, has a blow dart gun, and they subdue Elektra, and then right then the seaplane, which Daredevil has commandeered, crashes into the pier. Daredevil leaps out and starts kicking some ass. I'm still such a sucker for this kind of stuff. This fight choreography. So Wallenquist has got her Elektra, gun to her head. And he's like, just walk away and I'll let her live. So Daredevil, as he walks away, he knows he's going to shoot him in the back as soon as he can. But he has his senses, his heightened senses. So he knows when he's about to fire by hearing the tumblers in the gun or whatever you call it. And he says, hit him low, olive oil. Just like when they were younger. Because he knows Elektra's just waking up. He can sense her heartbeat. And she kicks him. And the Billy Club knocks him out. And she says, Matt, it is you. And they kiss. And Daredevil walks away with the bad guy. And it says, for the first time, Elektra cries. This is really well written for, definitely for a mainstream superhero comic. Frank Miller's first scripting job. And is better than most writers at Marvel at the time. As you can see, it's pretty art-based. He doesn't waste a lot of time with captions. Definitely more captions than there are today. Captions are kind of a thing of the past. But he allowed the art to tell the story. And, most writers at Marvel at the time were like, every panel had a caption describing what was going on in the panel, basically. So now we have 169, another great issue. We see that Bullseye is returned. Very striking cover. And we see a talk show. It's kind of a ripoff of Tom Snyder, or a parody of Tom Snyder. His name's Tom Snide. He's talking to Matt Murdock. And I guess we find out through this dialogue that there's a bulletin, a special news bulletin, interrupts their talk. And it turns out that Bullseye has escaped from a midtown hospital. He was about to undergo surgery. And when the camera comes back, when they come back to the show, Matt's gone because he heard the announcement. And he rushes to the scene of the crime. Bullseye just killed all these people getting out of there. This detective here, I'll get his name real quick. Lieutenant Manus. Now, Lieutenant Manus is going to appear a lot in these early Frank Miller issues. He kind of fades away, though, after a while. And now we see Bullseye still in his hospital clothes. And he's really gone over the bend, or over the rainbow. He's, everyone to him looks like Daredevil. That's how, crazed and paranoid he is. I should mention, because this team stays together the whole time, Glynis Wein, one of the better colorists in, mainstream comics at the time, she colors, I think, almost every issue Frank Miller does, and Joe Rosen letters every issue. And it's definitely a very solid team. So we see Bullseye, and he just freaks out and starts attacking everyone because he thinks they're Daredevil. Once again, I love these horizontal panels. Look at him just plow through these people. It's almost like almost like a film strip. So now we see Bullseye. He goes to a tailor shop to get a new Bullseye costume. And he keeps, every now and then this happens, his brain just is on fire. He has these horrible attacks. Now we cut away to Daredevil back at that hospital with Lieutenant Manus. Apparently, Bullseye's got this horrible tumor in his brain. And if they don't cut it out, he's going to die. So Daredevil, being the goody two-shoes he is, he's like, well, I got to bring Bullseye in just to save his life. He also wants to save everyone else's life that he's going to threaten, but that's what a nice guy he is. Here's some more like that really nice inking going on here. Just the really photorealistic stuff. Lots of zipatone. So Bullseye has one of his attacks in a theater. He's kind of hiding out in this. And this is a kind of a nod to Frank Miller's Loves. They're playing the Maltese Falcon, classic film noir. And there's these two geeks in the audience, film geeks, who are just talking about the tropes of crime fiction and film noir. So Bullseye starts freaking out. Once again, he's just attacking everyone. He thinks everyone's a devil. So Daredevil's on the prowl. He hears people mention something about that crazy guy started a fight in the theater. I'm out of here. So Daredevil starts hunting him down. So Daredevil shows up in the theater, and the melee begins. All these fight scenes I love, and some of my favorite superhero fight scenes ever drawn. The whole time these two geeks are just oblivious. They're just talking about Humphrey Bogart and Mary Astor. And so Bullseye grabs one of the geeks, uses him as a hostage. He says, don't move. Let me, kill you, basically. I'm going to throw this knife at you, or I'll kill this guy. And Daredevil does. Look at this very cinematic moment here. He takes the knife and falls. Now we cut away and we have a little interlude with Elektra. Elektra goes to Beth's apartment and she kind of lets herself in. And she sees like photos and statues. She realizes that Matt has a new lover, Heather Glenn. And she doesn't look happy. She actually throws this little sculpture into a mirror. And then Heather comes out. She says, Matt, is that you? This is a really beautiful panel here. I wanted to say about Glynis Wine's colors. I'm always talking about how the early 70s, the colors were better. I think maybe they didn't turn over to flexographic plastic presses yet, because there's some really solid colors in these issues. Glynis Wine, it seems like she's doing her best. Maybe she knew that like this comic's special. I'm gonna really work on this one, because there's just some beautiful panels like with coloring, great, really setting up great mood and stuff. Better than normal, because Glynis Wine was always a pretty damn good colorist. So Elektra leaves. I always love this panel for some reason, just the silent panel of her and sadly flying out the window. Now once again, Daredevil's hanging out with that Lieutenant Manus. And so one of these geeks has a cough. This is, it's almost like a crime fiction thing. So Daredevil's like, it's a clue, He says, yeah, so maybe I could find this guy just by listening for one guy coughing in the city. So Bullseye's back at their apartment. He basically says, take me back to your apartment, the film geek's place. And Daredevil basically tries something he's never done before. He pushes his senses to the limit. I always love this page. The layout with, a long panel, 3 inset panels. We see Daredevil on a roof just meditating. He's trying to block out all the sounds of the city. So we see the louder sounds, pretty loud stuff. And then as he concentrates more and more, softer sounds. And then he kind of strains himself even more so he can hear just He's hearing thousands of sounds, a sink dripping, and finally he hears it, a cough. And just beautiful colors in this. Not necessarily the color choice, but I mean the printing. Like, I don't remember its colors being this solid when I was a kid. I remember, like, always, I think it's more the later 80s. Like, that's when they started going to the cheaper presses. Or just crappier. So, back to the apartment, Bullseye has another attack. I love the series of panels where one of the geeks, he actually has a Maltese Falcon statue, and he says, this is my chance. It might be my only chance. And we see him walk up to Bullseye. He's about to cave his skull in, but he loses his nerve. And look how Glennis Wine makes the coloring like yellow, orange, and then when he's about to actually do the bloody deed, blood red, but then as he pulls back, it goes back to the yellow again. So Daredevil has triangulated where these guys are and dives through the window. And another great fight begins, and then which quickly turns into a chase. Bullseye goes down to the subway. Daredevil's worried because his senses won't work that well down there with the loud trains and all that. But he's like, Daredevil's the man without fear. He's like, fuck it. He doesn't pause for a second. So he's definitely at a disadvantage here. And then a train goes right by them, and the loud whistle basically blasts Matt's eardrums. So that's an important part of his, skill and his powers. And also, his brain is so just like fucked up. His radar's not working that good. So he's like punching steel girders. He's missing Bullseye. He's kind of blind, like literally, or more than literally blind. But finally he realizes as long as I can hold on to Bullseye, I can keep hitting him. I can't let him get away from me. So he's just brutally beating Bullseye until finally Bullseye passes out on the train track. He hears that the train is coming by the vibrations in the rails, and we have this like dramatic moment of him just thinking to himself, I don't even know how close the train is. I could die if I go out there to get him. And he's a horrible murderer. Maybe I should just let him die. But of course, this is Daredevil. So he gets Bullseye, pulls him off the tracks. A really nice sequence of thin panels here. And back at the hospital, the operation is a success. And it looks like Bullseye's going to be freed. It won't be hard for his lawyers to say, the tumor made him do it. He's not a bad guy. And so Daredevil and Manus have a little debate. Manus is like, you should have let him die. And Daredevil gives kind of a speech about, we have to have laws. And it's the only thing that keeps things from turning into just, turning into shit. Next we have 170. And this is, what Frank Miller did to the Kingpin. Kingpin, nobody really liked the Kingpin before Frank Miller turned him into this great character. Talk about gravitas. He was just some big fat gangster. So this is The Kingpin Must Die, starring Daredevil. We see Daredevil running on this bridge. These issues, the coloring keeps getting better and better. Just really nice, solid coloring for a mainstream comic. So Daredevil goes back to Josie's bar, where he always goes when he wants information, because he knows Turk is always hanging out there. Of course, Turk plays the fool. He's all bragging about how off I see Daredevil again, I'm going to kick his ass. And all his friends are like, he's right behind you. And Daredevil's there. Turk just jumps out the window. He's so scared of Daredevil. And he steals a taxi cab. He hauls the driver out and drives away. Look at that car. We'll see that later in his Sin City work. This car is 4 feet off the ground as it makes this turn, which wouldn't really work. But it looks very exciting. Okay, I gotta get some water, guys. It's hotter than a witch's oven right now in Portland. I'm trying not to sweat on the comic. So Daredevil cuts Turk off, just leaps over the block basically, and once again he shakes him down for information. He finds out from Turk that all the crime lords are putting a $5 million contract on the Kingpin. Now, if you don't remember Marvel history, the Kingpin retired from crime. He met a woman named Vanessa, a very refined, kind of aristocratic woman. She loved him back, and she convinced him to stop being a criminal. I mean, I think she would have left him if he didn't. And they kind of retired to Japan with all his money, and his lieutenants took over. So they've been in charge of the mob ever since. So Daredevil's like, why do they want to kill him? He's retired. He doesn't know. We'll find out, though, very soon. So now we see Japan, this little island where Kingpin has lived for the past few years. He's training, fighting all these guys. I guess he likes to keep in shape. This is some really good fight choreography here. Him taking on these, 5 martial artists. Really good stuff. We also are introduced to his, kind of second in command, this guy Lynch. This is kind of a fun scene where one of the martial artists says something mentions the Kingpin, the name. And I guess he does not like to be called the Kingpin anymore. He's Wilson Fisk, respected, importer, exporter. And he runs over there. And, even though he's promised Vanessa that he's not going to be a violent man, she's not around. So he totally looks like he's going to break his arm off. Then Vanessa shows up. And he's like, oh. It's almost like a sitcom. He's like, oh, he just pulled his arm. Dislocated his shoulder. I was just trying to help him out. And we realize that Kingpin is a complete pussycat. He loves Vanessa very much. Some of these panels I see a lot of just rushed art. Even less backgrounds than normal. It's still just the storytelling carries it, though. Frank Miller's really good at this, superhero storytelling. It's very, I didn't have reading these last night, I was just totally sucked in. Even though I probably read these 20 times back then. I would just reread these over and over when I was a kid. I must have been 13 when these came out, 14, around that. So apparently we find out why there's going to be a hit on the Kingpin. Kingpin kept all these files, he kept dirt on all of his lieutenants back in the day. In case they ever decided to betray him, he could fuck them over and turn in their, evidence against them. So he still held on to them as insurance. And Vanessa has convinced him to hand it over to the authorities, like the FBI. And she's like, they're criminals. You shouldn't feel like you're betraying them. Of course, Kingpin does feel a little I feel weird betraying my former lieutenants. So she says, we're going to need lawyers. I'm going to New York to hire Nelson and Murdoch. I guess their reputation is quite renowned. So the next day, Matt and Foggy are in the office, and these goons just bust down the door. And it's Vanessa and her bodyguards. And she's like, oh, sorry about that. And the bodyguards are a little overzealous. Seems a little not cool. And she tells them the lowdown. Of course, Matt is salivating. He's like, oh, my God, this is great. I can take down the whole East Coast mob. And then bullets fly through the window. Matt dives and knocks Vanessa to the ground. Matt instantly jumps out the window, goes around the corner and goes to the rooftop across the street. There's this assassin there. He's got this crazy flamethrower. Once again, sorry I keep bringing this up. I just love this shit, though. These horizontal panels. Daredevil leaping out of the panels. Sometimes there's no panel borders. Just such a good storytelling technique. So this poor sap, Daredevil's got him on his line from his billy club, and the guy, fucks up and burns through it with this flamethrower, and he falls to his death. So Matt returns to the storefront. Lieutenant Manus is there and some cops. And basically they're... oh, I'm sorry. Vanessa was kidnapped. While Matt was doing that, some goons came in and kidnapped Vanessa. Now we see Bullseye getting out of jail. Just like Lieutenant Manus said, he's like, yep, that tumor in his head. It was pretty easy for the lawyers to prove that, now that he's cured now. So Bullseye, because of his great reputation as the world's best assassin, is instantly picked up by some mafia types. And it's the East Coast Mafia. They want Bullseye to take out Kingpin. So Daredevil gets there a little too late, but he decides to follow them. Look how beautiful this is. This almost became a cliche of Frank Miller, adapting that film noir technique of the light coming through blinds, just making these great, almost op art looking panels, And look at the coloring on this page. This is just for a mainstream comic at the time. Everything about this is really nice. That panel right there, that's like Neil Adams worthy. I love this panel of Daredevil right here. So Daredevil pops in, basically. Bullseye's talking to his new bosses. And he just says, hey, Bullseye, I just saved your life. I can't help but feeling a little responsible for what you're doing now. And Bullseye whips out some throwing stars. Daredevil avoids them very deftly. And now we get another great fight scene. And even then, Frank Miller had some pretty good, cool dialogue, And, Bullseye can use anything as a weapon. So, Daredevil says, you're out of weapons. And he says, I never run out of weapons, Daredevil. I'll use the walls, I'll use the floor, and if they don't do the job, I'll use the whole city to kill you, as he kicks him out the window. Daredevil actually thinks, uh-oh. Seems kind of silly. And he whips out his billy club, tries to, makes a lifeline. Bullseye shoots it. And we see all these great vertical panels as Daredevil's falling through the sky. Tries to grab a flag, it rips. All these things slow him down, though. God damn it, I got sweat on my comic. My total mint copies of this. It's amazing how well I've kept these comics. They're really in good condition. Because I guess I loved them so much. Even though I reread them over and over, I was very careful. So he ends up falling into a garbage truck. Half dead, but he's alive. So now the East Coast mob is just basically going crazy, trying to figure out when the Kingpin's going to arrive. This whole scheme was to get Kingpin to come to America. They knew Vanessa was coming. They knew if they kidnapped her, the Kingpin would come out of hiding, and then they could take him out. And so now there's a few associates of Kingpin left. Even though he's retired, he has some of his people still in the city, so they're torturing all of them. And eventually, one of them gives up the information that the Kingpin's going to arrive at this small airfield near a farm upstate. Oh, on Staten Island, sorry. And at a certain time, I think it's like 4 p.m. or something. And so the mob's all waiting for Kingpin's little plane to land. And they all surround it as soon as it lands. And when the guy opens the door, he's like, it's empty. And it explodes and takes them all out. Here's some more good, colors. And then we see another little plane arriving, and it's Kingpin and Lynch. And we realize this is a whole different Kingpin. This is a Kingpin who isn't just this big, bulky, strong guy. He's a really master Machiavellian tactician, and just seems to know all the angles. He's one step ahead of everyone else. And this is basically all Frank Miller's invention. So Kingpin gives a tough guy speech of just I'm going to kill all those motherfuckers for taking Vanessa. They're dead. Now we have number 171. I'm pretty sure all these covers are by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson. I didn't look it up, but I'm pretty sure they are. So now we see Daredevil in that dump truck. He wakes up and then he, I guess he just goes home and takes a shower. He's got to meet Heather soon. So Kingpin sends a message to the guys. He basically says, I'm willing to make a deal. My wife for the incriminating documents. So Matt's with Heather, just a nice little, cute little romantic interlude. I don't really get why he's with Heather, to be honest. She just seems kind of whatever. So now we see the mob lords hanging out with Bullseye. Now Daredevil realizes that there's a limit to how much information he can get. You know, he's a superhero. A lot of people are just gonna run from him. So he goes undercover as this like kind of low-level gangster or hitman, and he goes to Josie's bar, and she says, "Not thirsty? Then why are you here? You looking for a lady? I'm looking for a man. Takes all kinds," which for a Marvel comic at the time, that was kind of a risque joke. As soon as he mentions Vanessa, the whole bar stops what it's doing and looks over. You know, this Frank Miller does this really well. Just like, it's almost like a very cinematic. The record scratch, you know. And they all come around Matt, and Matt kicks all their asses very easily. There's a running gag about Josie was complaining about her window being broken a few days ago when Turk ran through it. And once again, Daredevil's got to punch some guys through the window. Josie's like, not the window, no. And it turns into an all-out brawl. And Matt escapes Matt doesn't escape. Matt is the only one left standing, except for Turk and Grotto. And they take him to see the Kingpin, just like he wanted. So he's claiming that his name is Shades, that he's a hitman from Akron, Ohio. That's why he wants to see the the Kingpin. They lead him down into this like sub-sewer. That's where the Kingpin's hiding out. And I guess this is the first time Daredevil ever met Kingpin. He's just like, I can't believe how big he is. I never realized, using his sonar. I was surprised at that. I just thought in all the, 15 years since Daredevil #1, he would have at once maybe fought the Kingpin, but no. So it's all Frank Miller, the whole Daredevil Kingpin thing. There's some pretty bad figure work here in faces. So Kingpin's basically just like, kill this guy. I don't even know, fuck him. And then Matt says, let me give you a little demonstration. And Matt throws a pen into this guy's gun, jamming the barrel. So Kingpin's like, okay, you're hired. So then one of his men stumbles in, and I guess Bullseye totally worked him over, and he conveys the information. It's like, they want you to meet at a construction site. That's where they have Vanessa, and you bring the documents and we'll do the switcheroo. We realize that Lynch has got ulterior motives. His second in command, Lynch is really wants Kingpin to come back. He just is like, keeps implying like, boss, you should just kill all these guys and come back as the Kingpin of crime. They're incompetent. Things were much better when you were in charge. And he's like, I don't want to do that. I just want Vanessa. He's even thinking kind of thoughts of like, maybe he just needs a little shock treatment, this guy. So he's up to something. He definitely wants Kingpin back. So I guess because they kind of trust Shades, if you will. So he's just kind of given the run of the place. He's just in Kingpin's bunker, and he realizes he's got this giant vault. And I like this how there's no combination or anything. It's just so heavy that only Kingpin can lift the door. So it's secure if you're Kingpin. And Matt totally, because Matt never gives up. He just, even though he's not nearly as strong as the Kingpin, he just pulls and pulls and almost wrenches his shoulders out of the sockets, but he opens the door and he finds the documents are inside. He's about to take them so he can bring them to the DA, and Kingpin shows up. Daredevil, Matt turns into his Daredevil costume, and this is a great fight because, Kingpin is like 50 times stronger than Daredevil, but Daredevil's quick. And it's all in the dark. It's just some really fun fight scenes going on here. But Daredevil can't fight Kingpin. So Kingpin takes him out. And he goes to the construction site. We see Vanessa. She's tied to a girder. Bullseye's up on this wrecking ball. And he's going to take out Kingpin. So Kingpin says, here's the stuff. It's a briefcase. And as soon as the guy does the latch on it, the mobster, this high-pitched sonic squeal comes out, incapacitating everyone. Bullseye falls off the wrecking ball. Their ears are bleeding. And once again, Kingpin, one step ahead. And he's like, Vanessa, I did it. And, I didn't even kill them. I knew you wouldn't like that. So I figured out a way to do it without killing them. And then what Kingpin doesn't know is Lynch. He was supposed to stay in the car the whole time. He had this ulterior plan, this insidious plan where he had a mortar. And even though his ears were bleeding, he was far enough away so he's still conscious, and he hits the trigger and sends this mortar right into this construction, right into these girders, bringing the whole building down. Kingpin's okay. I mean, well, he's not that okay. He's pretty fucked up, but, he's strong as a bull. And, of course, he's just like, Vanessa. Trying to look through these girders, see if she's there. There's some really nice panelology here. Thicker. And really nice coloring going on. So Vanessa's gone. And Lynch shows up and is like, come on, boss, we gotta get out of here. And the Kingpin, of course, is just like, I'm gonna make them all pay. And now is a little epilogue. Once again, Turk and Grotto are tasked with getting rid of Daredevil. And instead of just shooting him in the head, Turk wants to make his death more painful because of all of his humiliations he suffered at Daredevil's hands. So they stuff him into this like sewer pipe. He wants him to drown. He's tied up, and Grotto shoves him into it. And we end with this cliffhanger of Daredevil with his hands tied behind his back, and with just a few minutes of oxygen in his lungs. And finally, we have number 172. Kind of an interesting cover. This weird purple color and the negative drawing of Kingpin. Excuse me, guys. I gotta get my sweat off the table here, the desk. So this is Gang War. Really nice title page. The way the logo is kind of in the city. And it's kind of weird. It's such a serious story, but this little truck says, starring Daredevil, Man Without Fear. And they're just smiling. But this is but then he's in very dire straits. This just all looks good to me. Really nice stuff. A lot of these color choices are very different than your average Marvel comic. Like these deep greens. You wouldn't see the colors like this mostly in mainstream comics. So Daredevil makes it out of the pipe. He's, of course, he just doesn't give up. He almost dies. And he comes out in this, like, kind of underworld under the New York City, where there's all these, like, kind of mole people homeless people, and they all kind of accost him. Money for food, money for food. And he's like, stay away. I'm sorry, I can't help you. So now we're back at Josie's bar. And Turk is there and bragging about how he just pulled off a big job. He's all smugly thinking to himself, like, yeah, snuffing Daredevil's a pretty big job, all right. And then there's a hand on his shoulder. It's a red-gloved hand. And Turk's like, God damn it, how the fuck? So once again, he's going to run right through the window. But this time, because Josie's all like, ah, damn it, Daredevil. These things cost so much money, these windows. So Daredevil grabs him by his ankle with his billy club line before he can break the window. And he basically says, Turk, okay, you're going to bring me up to date. What the hell's going on? Which is just an excuse for Frank Miller to give us a nice recap of what's happened. Everything we've just seen in the past 2 issues. But I really like this page. I love all this negative space here. It's just a good-looking layout. Almost like nice graphic design, you know? These faded out blue panels and then this bright red. Look at these colors here. Like this panel, this is from the greens. And then Frank Miller does this thing, which I don't know if he did this ever again in Daredevil. It's like this narrator pops in, and we even have typeset. It's not Joe Rosen's lettering. And this is just total like Raymond Chandler type stuff. He's like, yeah, that's right. This is New York City. But if you're thinking it's all bright lights and big money and all that glittery junk you've seen in the movies, well, you're in for a shock. So it's all that kind of thing. Just talking about New York City and how it'll crush your dreams, but it's still the best city in the world. Now we see Kingpin in his underground grotto, and so Kingpin began his war against the East Coast mob. And, you know, they don't have many guys, so he knows he can't confront them directly, but he starts strategically attacking their drop-off points, and, and we see this, like, reign of terror going on. Look at this guy getting mowed down and Glynis Wein just has this just explosion of orange and red. Almost as if like blood has spilled on the page itself. These side panels are really nice coloring from Glynis Wein. Really nice. So now we see Bullseye hanging out with those mob lords. And he's starting to think he's bet his money on the wrong horse. They're pretty incompetent. They're just panicking. And he's like, God, these guys are losers. So he says, for another $5 million, I'll find the Kingpin for you. And I'll kill him, of course. So Bullseye starts going around getting information, terrorizing all these thugs. So many nice panels here. That's a great little panel there. It's good stuff. Now we see Kingpin once again, training, beating up some poor martial artists. I hope they get paid well for this. And Turk shows up. And he tells him that Daredevil's still alive. And the lights go out. So, it's Daredevil, of course. He grabs the incriminating evidence. He grabs the briefcase. And he escapes. But of course, Kingpin, once again, one step ahead. It was just full of newspapers. So when he brings it to Lieutenant Manus, he's like, what are you, blind? Didn't you even check? There's just newspapers in here. Which Daredevil could have checked it. He can read paper with his sensitive fingertips. God, if superhero comics were this good, I'd be going every Wednesday to the comic shop. I might have said this before, but like I'm swearing to God, I love this shit. This is like just like a great movie. Once again, look at the coloring on this side panel. You never saw coloring like this. Well, rarely in a Marvel or DC comic. That's some really nice stuff. So now Bullseye's, hanging out with those mobsters, and he gets led into a trap. They got information where Kingpin was. The whole ceiling falls in on him. They sent him to the wrong, whatever, sub-sewer. So he goes back to his bosses, and he's like, you guys, you fucking clowns, you fucking amateurs. And Kingpin just walks into the door. And he basically just says, guys, you've been screwing up. I think I'm taking over again. And Bullseye pulls out his gun's going to shoot him, and he just doesn't even turn around. He just says, I think Bullseye's intelligence far outstrips his loyalty. By now, he's probably realized that you guys are a bunch of morons. He can fire a bullet into his brain or work for me, and at a better rate. And the mob bosses are just like, Bullseye, please shoot him. We'll give you anything you want. And Bullseye just lights Kingpin's cigarette. I love the way they do that. Look at, talk about the horizontal panels. He's really cutting this page up. And so basically Bullseye, he's not going to kill him. He's going to turn him into the authorities so they can take the fall for all the crap that's been going on in the city. And then he calls Lynch in, his second in command. And has deduced that Lynch is the one who killed Vanessa. Because Lynch has been complaining of headaches. He said if you stayed in the car, you wouldn't have all these headaches because that sonic device, fucked up your ears. And he just crushes him. Lynch pulls a gun on him, crushes his hand, and then look at this. Gets him on the ground, and then I love these two panels of just like arms raised, and then whoomp. And they don't show it, but he's probably just pulp. Kingpin's such a tough guy, even though he shot him right in the chest, he's just like, calmly just says, yeah, get rid of this guy and call me a doctor. And he walks away. And Daredevil finds this floozy woman. I don't know if she's a prostitute or just like a plaything for all the high-level mobsters. She's a girlfriend to all of them. She gives him a little information. And now we see Kingpin. He's got everyone under his thumb again. Those that wouldn't join him, he's already killed. But all the crime, basically lieutenants, are totally... A lot of them are glad he's back. They're like, this is great. Kingpin's back in charge. And then once again, the lights go out. And Bullseye says, free of charge, it's that Daredevil motherfucker. I got a score to settle with him. You don't even have to pay me. I'll kill him for you. So Kingpin's like, yeah, the generator's down in the basement. That's where I'm sure Daredevil's down there. He turned off all the power. So once again, the really deep colors for a newsprint comic. And Bullseye goes down there and he turns on the lights, and of course Daredevil's waiting for him. And now we just have a fucking amazing dramatic fight scene. And basically Daredevil says, once again, he says, I saved your life. And everyone you killed since then has fucking weighed on me. And he's like, I'm going to share that hurt with you now. And just look at this fun stuff. Throwing stars thrown. Daredevil stops him with his billy club. Throws the billy club at Bullseye's gun. Bullseye picks up Daredevil's bully club with the 3 throwing stars in it. And then Daredevil shoots it out of his hand. One of the rare times you'll see a Daredevil use a gun, or any Marvel superhero, except for the Punisher. And Daredevil's just... he's pretty in control of this fight. And Bullseye's pretty shaken. You can tell. I mean, even though he's quite formidable in a fight. And then finally, Bullseye's got him down, and he starts choking Daredevil. But Daredevil says, yeah, but I'm taking you with me. And he starts choking Bullseye. And just through his willpower, he wins. Bullseye basically is like, oh, shit. He panics and lets go. And Daredevil just chokes him out until he's unconscious. Once again, look at this panel. It's just like, this is like Bernard Krigstein shit. And then Kingpin's still upstairs. Kingpin shows up with all his goons. It looks like Daredevil's in a pickle, but he basically says, you're lucky I need you. Here's the evidence. I want you to deliver this to the DA, and you'll basically be helping me. And I know this is going to irk you, but think about it this way. I've got a shattered organization to rebuild. It'll take me a while. So for a little while, your side will be stronger than us. Consider the greater good of society. So like just Kingpin, just with his like rational, ruthless logic, convinces Daredevil not to fight and basically do his bidding, because he wants Daredevil to put this evidence. He also gives him Bullseye too. He says, you can have Bullseye. So Daredevil's pretty pissed off, but he's like, you win Kingpin this time. And now we have a little epilogue. We see that construction site. And apparently the girders kind of broke through the ground to like the sewers. And the authorities just assume that Vanessa's body must have got washed out to sea. But that is not the case. And we see Vanessa lives. And her eye, but it says now her eyes stared numbly. There's nothing left of her now, nothing but a single need. Hungry, food, money for food. So she's going to be like those people underground, those mole people. So there you go, guys. Another 5 issues of Frank Miller's Daredevil. We got a bunch more to go. And hope you guys like looking at it with me. I fucking had a great time rereading these last night. It's been probably over 30 years since I've reread these. These have been reprinted many times. You don't have to pay the prices that you'd have to pay now for these. And so you could read this in many different ways for much cheaper. Just really nice stuff, though, and just fun as hell. Just like a great action movie, you know, her adventure movie. So hope you had a good time watching, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.